When Lupus was trying to kill me, that's when I realized I didn't want to die yet. Those words from Selena became the rawest confession Oprah had heard in her 30-year career. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything Selena had never said before. Everything the world thought they knew about her, but never really understood. Oprah watched as this young woman who had spent her entire adult life performing strength for cameras and crowds, finally allowed herself to crumble in front of millions. The studio felt sacred in that moment, as if everyone present understood they were witnessing something rare and precious, the exact moment when a soul stops hiding. It was October 2018, 3 months after Selena's kidney transplant. The world knew the medical facts, the carefully crafted press releases, the sanitized version of her health journey, but they didn't know what happened in the hospital room at 3 a.m., when the machines beeped their urgent warnings and Selena thought she was dying alone, surrounded by strangers in scrubs. They didn't know about the panic attacks that started when she realized her own body had become her enemy, turning against itself in ways that no amount of fame or success could fix. Oprah had interviewed thousands of people, but something about Selena's story felt different from the moment she walked into the studio. There was a heaviness in her step, a careful way she moved, as if she was still learning to trust her own body again. But there was also something else. A quiet strength that hadn't been there before. A groundedness that comes only from having stared death in the face and chosen life. Oprah recognized it immediately, because she had seen it in herself after her own darkest moment. "Tell me about the night you knew," Oprah said gently, leaning forward in that way that made people feel safe enough to speak their deepest truths. Selena's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. "I was in the hospital, and my kidneys were failing." The doctors had that look, you know? The one they get when they're trying not to scare you, but they're scared themselves. The studio was completely silent. Even the crew members who had seen countless emotional interviews found themselves holding their breath. "I called my mom that night," Selena continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I told her I was sorry for everything, for disappointing her, for not being strong enough, for letting Lupus win." But what Selena said next would change how Oprah understood courage forever. "My mom asked me what I wanted, and I realized I had never actually asked myself that question. I had been so busy being what everyone else needed me to be. The perfect daughter, the role model, the unstoppable pop star, that I forgot I was allowed to want things for myself. I had forgotten that underneath all those roles, there was still just a girl who was scared and hurting and desperately wanted to matter for more than just her achievements." Oprah felt tears building in her eyes. In 3 decades of interviews, she had learned to recognize the moment when someone stops performing and starts being human. This was that moment. "What did you tell her?" Oprah asked. "I told her I wanted to live. Not just survive, but actually live. I wanted to eat ice cream for breakfast and stay up too late talking to my friends. I wanted to feel the sun on my face without worrying about how it would affect my medication. I wanted to be messy and imperfect and human. I wanted to laugh so hard that my stomach hurt and cry without having to explain why. I wanted to make mistakes and learn from them instead of being terrified of disappointing anyone." The admission hung in the air like a prayer. Here was a young woman who had been in the public eye since she was 15, admitting that she had never given herself permission to simply exist without purpose or performance. "The lupus diagnosis changed everything," Selena explained, her fingers unconsciously touching her chest where some of her medication scars remained hidden. "Before that, I thought I could control my life through willpower and hard work. I thought if I just tried hard enough, if I just pushed through every obstacle, everything would be perfect. I had built my entire identity around being the girl who never gave up, who always found a way to succeed." Oprah nodded, understanding flooding her face. "And then your body taught you otherwise." "My body became a stranger to me," Selena said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke a truth she had never articulated before. "It was attacking itself, and I couldn't understand why. I kept asking the doctors what I had done wrong, what I could do differently. Was it stress? Was it my diet? Was it punishment for something? The not knowing was almost worse than the diagnosis itself. When you're used to having control over your life, Having your own body turn against you feels like the ultimate betrayal." She paused, looking directly at Oprah with an intensity that made the older woman lean back slightly. But the hardest part wasn't the physical pain. It was realizing that I had spent so many years trying to be perfect that I had no idea who I actually was underneath all of that. This was the moment that would define the interview, though neither woman knew it yet. During the worst of it, when my kidneys were failing and I was on dialysis, I had to face the possibility that I might die having never really lived as myself. Selena continued. That terrified me more than death. Oprah reached across and took Selena's hand. "Tell me about Francia." At the mention of her friend's name, Selena's composure finally broke. "Frances saved my life," she said through tears. "She gave me her kidney without hesitation, but more than that, she reminded me what love looks like when it's not conditional on your performance." The story Selena told next would become one of the most powerful moments in Oprah's show history. "When I woke up from the transplant surgery, the first thing I felt wasn't gratitude. It was guilt. Francia was in the next room, recovering from major surgery because my body had failed. I felt like I had stolen something precious from her, something irreplaceable. Here was this incredible woman who had literally given me a piece of herself, and all I could think about was how unworthy I was of such sacrifice." Oprah's eyes widened. "You felt guilty for accepting a gift that saved your life." I had spent so long believing that I had to earn love through achievement, that I couldn't understand why someone would sacrifice so much for me when I couldn't give anything back. Selena explained. "I was weak, I was sick, I was broken. What could I possibly offer her in return?" The vulnerability in her voice made everyone in the studio lean forward, as if they were witnessing something sacred. "Francia told me something that changed everything," Selena said, her voice steadying as she remembered her friend's words. She said, "Sel, you've been giving pieces of yourself to everyone else for so long that you forgot you were worthy of love just for existing. You don't have to earn this kidney. You don't have to earn my friendship. You don't have to earn the right to live. You just have to accept it." And then she did something that broke me completely. She started crying. Not for herself, not for what she had given up, but for me. She cried because she could see how much I was hurting, how much I had been hurting for years without even realizing it. Oprah felt a shift in the room, the kind of energy that happens when universal truth is spoken aloud. That's when I realized that lupus wasn't just attacking my body. It was forcing me to confront the way I had been attacking my own sense of self-worth for years. The interview took a turn that surprised everyone, including Oprah. "I started seeing lupus differently," Selena said, a slight smile playing at her lips for the first time during the interview. "Instead of my enemy, it became my teacher. It taught me that my value isn't determined by what I produce or how perfectly I perform. It forced me to slow down and listen to what my body was telling me, what my heart was telling me. For years I had been so loud with my achievements and my image that I couldn't hear my own inner voice anymore." She looked directly into the camera, speaking to the millions of young people who saw her as a role model. "I spent years trying to be the perfect pop star, the perfect actress, the perfect role model. I thought that's what people needed from me. But lupus taught me that what people actually need is honesty." Oprah recognized this as a transformational moment, not just for Selena, but potentially for everyone watching. "The night before my transplant surgery, I wrote letters," Selena revealed. "One to Francia, thanking her for showing me what unconditional love looks like. One to my mom, apologizing for all the years I thought I had to be perfect to deserve her love. And one to myself." "What did you say to yourself?" Oprah asked softly. Selena smiled through her tears. "I told myself that it was okay to be scared. It was okay to need help. It was okay to not have all the answers. And most importantly, it was okay to be loved just as I was, kidney disease and all." The studio audience was completely silent, many wiping away tears they hadn't realized they were shedding. The recovery was harder than I expected. Selena continued, her honesty cutting through the polished veneer that usually surrounded celebrity health stories. "Not just physically, but emotionally. I had to learn how to live in a body that felt foreign to me. I had to learn how to accept help without feeling guilty. I had to learn how to say no to things that weren't serving my health. But most importantly, I had to learn how to forgive myself for being human, for having limitations, for not being able to save everyone, including myself, through sheer determination. Oprah leaned forward. How did that change your relationship with your career? Everything changed, Selena said with conviction that surprised even herself. I realized that I had been using my career to avoid dealing with my own pain. Every project, every performance, every public appearance was a way to prove that I was worthy of love and attention. I was running from myself, using applause and achievements as band-aids for wounds I had never allowed to properly heal. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But when you're lying in a hospital bed, connected to machines that are keeping you alive, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is the people who show up not because of what you can do for them, but because of who you are. This revelation hit Oprah with unexpected force. Here was a young woman who had achieved more by age 26 than most people achieve in a lifetime, saying that none of it mattered compared to authentic human connection. The lupus forced me to slow down and ask myself what I actually wanted from my life, Selena explained. For the first time, I started making decisions based on what felt right for me, not what I thought people expected from me. Oprah smiled, recognizing the wisdom that often comes through suffering. And what did you discover you wanted? Peace, Selena said without hesitation, the word carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. I wanted to wake up in the morning without immediately thinking about what I needed to accomplish to prove my worth. I wanted relationships where I could be completely myself, even the messy, imperfect parts. I wanted to be able to disappoint people without feeling like I was disappointing myself. I wanted to love my work because it fulfilled me, not because it validated me. I wanted to be able to rest without guilt, to take care of myself without calling it selfish. The conversation shifted to something even more profound. I also realized that by hiding my struggles, I was doing a disservice to other young people going through similar things. Selena said, there are kids out there dealing with chronic illness, mental health challenges, feeling like they're not enough. If my story can help even one person feel less alone, then everything I went through was worth it. Oprah felt goosebumps rising on her arms. This was why she did these interviews. For moments when someone's pain transforms into purpose. Tell me about your relationship with your body now, Oprah requested. Selena laughed, a sound full of hard-earned joy. It's complicated, but it's honest. Some days I love my body for surviving everything it's been through. Other days I'm frustrated with its limitations, but I've learned to see it as my partner rather than my enemy. She gestured to her torso where scars from her surgery remained hidden beneath her clothes. These scars tell a story of survival, of friendship, of love. They remind me that beauty isn't about perfection, it's about the courage to keep going when everything falls apart. The interview was nearing its end, but Oprah had one more question. What would you say to your teenage self, knowing what you know now? Selena thought for a long moment, her eyes distant with memory. I would tell her that it's okay to not have everything figured out. I would tell her that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I would tell her that the people who love her for who she is are the only opinions that matter. She looked directly at Oprah, then at the camera. And I would tell her that sometimes the things that feel like they're destroying you are actually preparing you for something beautiful. As the interview concluded, Oprah felt something she rarely experienced after 30 years in television. She felt changed. Selena's story wasn't just about lupus or kidney transplants or celebrity struggles. It was about the universal human journey from performing for love to accepting love as it is. It was about the courage required to stop running from your own vulnerability and instead learn to dance with it. The young woman who had walked into the studio that day carrying the weight of perfectionism walked out carrying something much lighter, the truth, and in sharing that truth, she had given millions of viewers permission to examine their own relationships with worthiness, illness, and what it truly means to be alive. Sometimes the most powerful interviews happen not when someone shares their victories, but when they share their vulnerabilities with such raw honesty that it transforms everyone listening. Selena Gomez had done both that day, and in doing so had reminded everyone watching that healing isn't about returning to who you were before the trauma, before the diagnosis, before the world tried to break you. It's about becoming who you were, always meant to be. Scars and all.